9, 4, 2, 5, 6, 3, 3, 4. Cool. And SP 8. Cool. Sorry about that, peeps. That was bad, especially if you had headphones on. Sorry, Jacob. The feedback issues.
That's okay. I muted it.
Resolved in the next few days to week. But that's yeah. If you don't have the volume turned off, turned all the way down on the projector, it does that, and that's not great. But now I know you can hear me. I was going to check and see if I was like the audio was working, but I know that is happening because the look on Jacob's face was definitely indicative of working audio. So we have 1, 2. Yeah, you're actually in it twice. So we got 2 people online, Jacob and Jaden, and 2 people in the room. So that's 4. I saw him today out in the. It's Joe. Cool. And Luke just joined online. So fingers crossed. And actually, Joe, some subset of those light switches, one of them ought to turn these lights that are shining on the screen off. If you could turn that off, that'd be awesome. That one, not that one. Hey, awesome. Okay, coolio. And I was a doofus and I left my phone at home. So if somebody could check Slack and make sure somebody's not screaming at us on Slack about where the hell class is, that would be awesome. I had meant to do that with my phone and yeah, I left it at home.
It doesn't look like it.
Okay, cool. And I realized as I was coming in, I had not actually published the course on Canvas, so I just took care of that. So that's a win. Well, oh, there's new course has arrived. That's cool. 1, 2, 3, 4 there, 3 here. So that's 7 of 8. I'm going to call that a win and say we start. And I will attempt to figure out who's missing later on. So I am going to share my screen and we can go through the syllabus and the stuff and the stuff and the stuff. Okay, so first, things are a little weird today, and I'm guessing at least Friday, but hopefully they will get better. So the intent is there will be speakers hanging from the ceiling that look like little balls. I mean, sorry, microphones that hang from the ceiling. And then there will also be speakers mounted on the ceiling. Oh, actually the speakers appear to already be in. Okay, so they're not on the ceiling, they're on the wall in this room. But I think there's supposed to be mics mounted on the ceiling that are not here yet. They're waiting for those to come in. There are some significant supply chain problems in all of this stuff because, of course, everybody is trying to do what the university is doing. My sister's brother ordered a webcam for my sister's mother, and it took 4 months to arrive. Ordered it in April, and it came over the summer because everybody, oddly enough, is buying stuff like this. So, yeah, there'll be mics hanging from the ceiling and these speakers. And when everything's working right, if folks at home speak up and say something, that should come out these speakers here. And when people in the room say something, that should go in the mics and be audible to the people there. At the moment, the only speakers are the computer and these guys, and they have terrible feedback, which you all, except for I think Joe wasn't here yet, but those of you who are here got to hear the really exciting feedback problem. So until that's resolved, I can have the microphone on the laptop on, and I can have the speaker on the laptop on, and that's it. So if those of you who are here in person speak up, they won't hear it online. I'll have to repeat it. And if you folks online say something, I can hear it here on the laptop, but it probably won't sort of project out into the room. So again, I'd have to repeat it, which is fine. I mean, that shouldn't be a problem. And actually, as a test, can somebody who's online like say something to make sure I can actually hear you?
Hello.
Hey, I heard that. Go team. Jacob says hello. Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate it. There will also be a camera, which is going to be mounted, I think, in the back of the room. And at the moment, I'm trying to think, where is the camera? Oh, there's a little cheapo camera just sort of propped on top of the projector at the moment. But the dangly thing in the back center of the room, I think, is where the actual camera will be mounted. And they're neat remote control cameras that you can use to pan around the room, so we can have it point at the screen or point at the class or do any of a number of things that will hopefully improve the experience for people who are participating online. But those cameras haven't come in either. So we're sort of stuck with cheap webcam propped on top of the frame there. Okay, so that's that sort of stuff. I guess I should say this is the software quality elected computer science 4659 software quality, and I'm Nick McPhee. I think at this point probably everybody's figured that out, and I recognize everybody's name, so I don't think we have a problem. But it's me. You know, we all look like we've gotten together to rob a bank here in the room, and it's weird in my intro class, I don't know any of those people. So I've got a room full of people wearing masks who I don't know. And now I'm not sure I would recognize them. You know, it's just a bunch of people wearing sort of U of M gold masks. So very strange experience, but here we are. So today we will go through the syllabus, and I'm guessing that will actually take up most of the day. But if there's, you know, any other time, we can talk about some things. And because this is only the second time we've taught this class. This class is reasonably new. It was taught for the first time 2 years ago. This is the first semester I've ever taught a blended class where some people are attending online and some people are attending in person. This is new to me. And so my plan is to remain fairly flexible about things because I think it's the only way we're going to survive. Because, you know, for all we know, in a month, they'll send you all home. And we'll, you know, have to deal with that because it was really fun the first time. So we might as well repeat it, right? Let's hope it doesn't happen that way, but yeah. There are things that I did 2 years ago that may have worked then, but will not work the same in a class where some people are remote and some people are present. And so, you know, we're going to do some experimenting, try some different things, and if things are working, great, let me know. If things are not working, great, let me know. I mean, so we want to try to make this as good as we can. Okay, so done babbling. So Canvas, blah, 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 like you've seen in a million other classes. We will start with the syllabus. There we go. And because the screen on the laptop is not very big, I'm sort of minimizing the view of the online participants. So if you have a question, definitely shout is probably your best bet. Otherwise, it's not obvious that I'll be aware that you're trying to talk to me. Or you can say something in the chat, and if somebody like Sean is actually watching on Zoom as well, Sean can be like, there's chat. People are trying to raise their hands. Say, deal with it. And that'd be awesome. I'm gonna make this a little bigger for my own amusement. So this is CSci 4659. So this is a processes and programming languages elective. In that category of electives, and you need, some electives from all three categories to graduate. So this is doing that. We will meet in this room or in this virtual room Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2:15 to 3:20. We're in here and not in 2185 as initially scheduled. 2185 isn't getting the new toys until later in the year, maybe not even this school year. It depends on when they can get the equipment. And so I was able to move us into a room that hopefully within a week we'll have all the toys. So that's why we shifted rooms. I'm still me, that's still my email address. This is all stuff that you know. 4-credit course, blah, blah, blah. So this class is not going to, well, this class is going to be a weird combination. There's going to be programming, there's going to be a lot of reading and discussion. So it's going to be a mixture of all of those things, which I think is cool, but it's certainly, I think, slightly unusual in our program. There is a textbook. I don't own a physical copy of it, to be honest with you. So that's the book, Software Design X-Rays by Adam Tornhill. This was a brand new book when we taught the class 2 years ago. It was like 6 months old. Now it's 2 years and 6 months old, so it's still pretty new. And I think it's very cool. I like it a lot, and I learned a lot from it. He's got a previous book, which has got a clever title like Your Code is a Crime Scene. And he's like, you made the mistake. Why are you whining? And this takes that and sort of extends those ideas. And I think one of the really key cool things that he does is there've been a lot of tools over the years that attempt to assess the quality of software by looking at the code. But as we all know, code changes over time. And what Tornhill's done, which is really nice, is he's built some tools that help us understand what that means, what the changes over time mean in a code base, and using essentially the Git history as a way of telling us valuable things about where we ought to be focusing our attention to improve the quality of the software, who has been working in certain areas, so we might need to be nervous if it turns out that like that key part was written entirely by Sean. Well, what if Sean gets hit by a bus? Sucks for us, man. Not just because, we'll miss Sean, but it also is difficult for us as a company. If somebody who is the only person who understands the central back end component is not able to come, and in COVID land, right? I mean, that could be totally possible. Not, that anybody dies, but you could be out of commission for 2 weeks or a month pretty easily with this thing. And in, software development land, that could be an eternity. So his tools do a nice job of helping us understand those kinds of issues. So I think there's a lot of good stuff in this book. There are also a lot of great references. I mean, it's got really good bibliography. And several of the readings that we'll do, I came to through this book and was like, oh, that's an awesome reading. We should totally do that. So I think it's a very nice book. And it's, I think, very readable. Yeah, I like it. I think I only have an electronic copy. If I have a paper copy, it's in my office somewhere, and God only knows what that means, because you see my office. But I think I just have an electronic copy, so otherwise I'd wave one around and show everybody what it looks like that way. Questions about any of that so far? Doing good online? Okay, appreciate the thumbs up. So, course description, exploration of metrics and tools for assessing the health and quality of a software system, including technical debt, system complexity, duplication, and maintainability. Ways of communicating about software systems such as code reviews. Use of techniques such as refactoring and design patterns to improve systems. Includes substantial application and project work. As I said, this is only the second time we've done it. The first time we've done it as a blended course. So I think there are several important questions there. One is, how do we even define software quality? Like, are we stuck with just, well, I know it when I see it? Or are there ways that we can measure or document or discuss in a non-subjective way what it means for code to be good? Okay. And I think that's a complicated question. I think parts of it are pretty subjective, and we can have reasonable differing opinions, but also I think there are some things that are more objective. I think we could all agree that if you have a program that is one single function that goes on for 7 pages, that's not good, right? I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to figure that one out. Or if you have a fairly complex piece of code and there's nothing more than single and double letter variable names, probably not a good sign. So, I mean, I think there are some things that are fairly straightforward, and I think there are things that are less clear and more debatable. Related to that is, how do we recognize or measure it when we can? Third one, how do we improve the quality? Like, if we agree that there is some sense that this is better than that, how do we move from the weaker to the stronger? And we could do that as like a standalone goal, but we could also talk about that in terms of, as we do our regular work, how can we do small things every day that make the code better instead of making it worse? And then the fourth one here is, how do we communicate about code, both statically and then also as it changes, in ways that help us understand and improve the quality? How do we have a good, meaningful conversation about the quality of the code in a way that ultimately makes it better? I think these are all very important questions. Like, as professionals, these are all serious things to be concerned about. Questions about that? Comments? Anybody? Going? Okay. And then there's a quote here from Robert Martin's book, Clean Code, which we will read the first chapter of when the library gets it on reserve for us, where he says, the ratio of time spent reading versus writing code here is over 10 to 1. So he's arguing that we spend 10 times as much time reading code as we do actually typing in new characters. We are constantly reading old code as part of the effort to write new code. Because this ratio is so high, we want the reading of code to be easy, even if it makes the writing harder. Of course, there's no way to write code without reading it, so making it easy to read actually makes it easier to write. There is no escape from this logic. You cannot write code if you cannot read the surrounding code. The code you are trying to write today will be hard or easy to write, depending on how hard or easy the surrounding code is to read. So if you want to go fast, if you want to get done quickly, if you want your code to be easy to write, make it easy to read. Okay. And that all sounds, pretty straightforward in some ways, but I suspect that that was not your experience necessarily in software design, for example, that, you were not like worrying desperately about how easy this was going to be to read in 2 weeks when you wrote it. But I bet you also had the experience of having to write code and finding the code around it to be inscrutable and bizarre. Even if you had written it just, a week ago, you're like, what the hell was that about? So you've probably had this experience you've probably had the pain side of this experience. You may or may not have had much of the, oh, we're gonna try to do this in a not terrifying way because I don't want to have to read terrifying code later side of it. But I think that that's a very succinct way to explain what I think is one of the hard problems in the field. And the demand is always to have the feature done yesterday. You felt that in software design. You always wanted more done. You wanted to give the customer lots of stuff. Time was running out. The iteration was going to end, and maybe you wouldn't have to look at the code anymore. You could always hope. And so there's a lot of pressure to just get some stuff out the door and not necessarily worry about what that might mean later on. But it can definitely mean awkward things later on. So the learning objectives for the course are, first, the ability to critically interrogate the idea of software quality. Can we have a meaningful conversation about what that even means? Ability to provide a sophisticated analysis of the quality of a software system. Can we look at a system and say something more than, wow, that stinks, or that's beautiful? Can we, actually provide meaningful feedback in a more sophisticated way? The ability to improve the quality of the software system through tools like refactoring. Can we refactor effectively and make things better? And the ability to communicate effectively, I can't spell apparently, about code using tools such as the design of the code itself, documentation of code, or work on code, and code reviews. Wow, that's a lot of words. Really, what I care about mostly there is code reviews. I think that sentence badly needs somebody to give it a hug. So if that sentence baffles you, go with ability to communicate effectively about code using tools such as code reviews, and then just move on. Because that, I think, would be, if I were to go back to that, that's what I would make that. I must have written that late at night when I needed a nap. Okay, so those will be sort of the key goals that we'll be working on over the course of the semester. We'll go back to the Canvas site in a second. Questions about everything so far? We're about to get into some practical crap about office hours and stuff like that. Anybody online got a question? Raise hand. Nope, good, okay. Well, I think we have a full house now. Cool. Okay, office hours and etc. Because of COVID, I'm going to be spending as little time on campus as possible. So I won't be in my office pretty much ever. So don't go there looking for me because you're probably not going to find me. You could look at my door if it makes you happy, but I am not going to probably be on the other side of that door. So I will be here lecturing, or I will be transiting between here and the house, or I will be at home, and I will be available online. So my cell, feel free to introduce, or make sure you introduce yourself if you've not texted me before, so I know who that random person on that phone number is. We created a Slack for the class. Most of you, not all of you, have joined it, so and that should be old news for you folks, so that's a win. I'm trying to get my intro students to do the whole Slack thing, and they are much less convinced. You know, I invited you folks at about the same time I invited them, and like almost everybody in this class had joined, I think, within 24 hours. And I had, I think, 3 people had joined after several weeks in a class of 18 in the other class. There's been a little uptick after class this morning. A few more people joined, so because I talked about it. But you know, it's a new thing, and they're like, "What's this about? And why do I care?" So thank you for getting on board promptly. It is appreciated. because of COVID, office hours are just frankly kind of weird. So there's a whole page about office hours. So most of office hours are going to be sign-up slots. And so if you go to the Google Calendar sign-up slots page, it looks like this, and well, you'll get your calendar instead of my calendar in the background, but these silver appointment slots are what you're looking for. And you click on one of them and you can reserve it. It'll put it on your calendar, it'll put it on my calendar, it'll send me an email. No brainer, good stuff. There are slots on, backing up, there's slots Tuesday from 1 to 3 and Friday 10:30 to noon. One thing that's not clear to me is how long to make the slots. When we went to online in the spring, I made the slots half an hour, and I found that people often didn't use the half hour. There were a lot of like 10-minute questions. Sometimes people wanted to chat and, you know, advising and stuff, right? That happened, but a lot of the day-to-day stuff just didn't take that long. And so this time I made the Friday slots 15 minutes and the Tuesday slots 20 minutes. And if that's too short, we'll change that. I mean, it's a trivial thing to change in Google Calendar. So if it's too short, we'll definitely fix it. If you feel like you want a longer chat than 15 minutes, go ahead and grab 2 back-to-back slots, and that's totally fine. Unless, of course, some people have cut it up so every other slot's taken, and then you're kind of out of luck. But assuming that doesn't happen, feel free to grab 2 slots. And if you feel in the end like the slots are just too short, let me know. We can totally change that, or we can change it on one day and not the other. So that's there. I also have an open work time Zoom meeting Thursday from 3 to 5. I did something like this with some other faculty over the summer, and I thought it was actually really useful. So we're going to try it here with my students. So basically, I'll have a Zoom meeting from 3 to 5. I will be there working on stuff, probably course prep or grading. And you can join and work on your stuff, whatever your stuff is. And usually what would happen is at the beginning of the meeting, we'd all say hi and talk about what we were going to work on. And then somebody, in this case me, sets a timer and says, okay, let's work for half an hour. And then we'll come back together and report in. And so we would work for a while, and most people would actually mute their mics. So if they were like wrestling around, they weren't making a lot of noise. And then whoever had the timer, me, we go, oh, timer's done. We've survived 30 minutes. Yeah, yes. And then we chat a little bit about how things went, and then we'd start another slot and do it again. This is entirely optional. You don't have to consistently come. You don't have to come for the whole 2 hours. You can come in the middle of a session and leave in the middle of the session. It is entirely up to you. If nobody likes it and nobody does it, then I'll cancel it and replace it with something else. But sort of we're off in uncharted territory and experimenting. And so this is an experiment, and we'll see how that goes. So you're welcome to join and do that. I know times aren't going to work for everybody, and I would encourage you, for example, to just make appointments on my calendar. If you want to chat about something and either the appointment slots aren't working or they're all taken, or like I said, somebody took every other one and you want a half hour, just go ahead and put something on my calendar. That would be totally fine. And you folks, know me well enough, you might actually do it. Saying this to 12, intro students, they're just like, can I actually touch your calendar? It sounds so scary. Like, no, really, it's all good. But they're not, I'm not sure they're buying it. And then as another experiment, boy, there's a lot of experiments. We should have gotten the mask to all say guinea pig. That would have been good. But that didn't happen. I'm pretty sure that the university admins would not have been thrilled with that idea, even if I'd suggested it to them. So as another experiment, which is more useful for people here in town than people who are staying at home, is I've got a lawn chair in my office, and on Monday and Wednesday from 10:30 to 11:30, I'm going to take it out, sit in the grass, and chat with whoever shows up until the weather tells me I don't want to do that anymore. So I did that today, actually, and I made a little picture. So I'm thinking somewhere in this space here, and I set up probably right around here today, and had to move once because they were mowing the lawn, and the guy didn't want to kill me. That's very nice of him. Joe came about halfway in, and we talked for a fair while, got caught up on some things. So that was cool. So yeah, I'll be out there if the weather, if it's not raining, it hasn't gotten too cold yet, I'll be sitting on the grass, and we look forward to having you stop by and say hi. Now, we can't really do a lot of work there necessarily. We're too far away to get Wi-Fi, and all of that stuff. So it's a sit and chat thing more than a, like intense work session. But if you can do it on a phone, or we can just like talk at each other, then we're good. So that'll be an option. Questions about any of that office hour stuff? Going. Okay, rock and roll. So, yeah, I think the rest of this is all old news. Thornhill's book, blah, blah, blah. So COVID, mask distancing stuff. If you're here, wear a mask. Everybody's doing that. That's awesome. Maintain distance. Everybody's doing that. That's awesome. There's hand sanitizer in all the classrooms. There's spray stuff and rags for wiping down keyboards and things. So like if you come and are using the keyboard, or if there's like groups rotating through, probably makes sense to wipe things down. We do all have to speak up because masks complicate things. I mean, I know I sound a lot more muffled than I would like, and not much to be done about it. And you really don't want me to take my mask off, because talking loudly and projecting, of course, I'm spewing crap all over the room. So, health and safety. Do the right thing. Be cool. Online people, I will actually try to record all the lectures. At least where that makes sense, and share those. I don't know how long it'll take Zoom to process those. These are being processed on their servers because I'm not doing this on my own computer at home. I can't do it on this computer and have access to it later. I had a problem in March where it took Zoom 48 hours to process one test video that I shot. Now, this morning we had class, and Zoom had finished processing the video in like 15 minutes. So I think they've thrown a lot more resources at the problem. But I also think we're starting earlier than a lot of schools, and their resources might get tested more significantly as more schools come online. So there could be delays in getting the videos turned around, but we'll see what's going on there. We will be doing discussion, and that'll be, I think, one of the challenges here. I think we'll probably try to do like breakout rooms in Zoom, depending on the number of people. Like, an easy thing we could do today is we could be like the 3 people who are here in the room, you're a group, but you have to sort of shout at each other from a distance, right? And the people that are online could be a group. It's a little unbalanced, but it would work. But then you'd end up talking to the same people all the time too, because those of you that are here would just keep talking to the people that are here. So as we move forward, if you can bring a laptop or a phone or something, so that if we, for part of the class, break up into small groups, you can participate in that small group, even on your phone. Like, you don't need anything fancy, as long as people can hear you and you can hear them. And then we could be in small groups and then come back together as a class after we've chatted some. There's only 8 of us, so we may also just be able to like have the 8 of us have a conversation and not need small groups as much, but we'll see how that goes. It may be easier to give everyone a chance to be involved if we have small groups at times. Pets are cool, they can attend, it says so on number 5. And then wash your mask. Masks can get grody. I'm probably wearing 2 masks a day on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because I'll wear a mask in the morning class and then get home and go, that's gross, and put that in the laundry and put on a new mask when I come to see you. So, you know, be good about your mask. If you're not feeling well or you feel like you may have been exposed, stay home, right? Join the class online until you know different. If you think you've come down with something, let Campus Health Services know, and they can arrange for you to be tested, etc. Let me know, especially if you definitely have COVID. Let me know, and make sure that health services know so they can initiate things like contact tracing and stuff like that. If I get sick, let's hope that doesn't happen. I'm old and not as resilient as you youngins. If I get sick, we'll probably go completely online because obviously I shouldn't be here shouting at you. If I'm, only mildly ill or I feel like maybe I've been exposed and I'm just protecting people, then I'll keep lecturing from home, running class from home. If I get really sick and can't do that, then we might have some guest people come and manage stuff. But there's also a fair bit of like project-based work going on in this class where you're adults, and if you know what you need to do, you can just do it. You don't really need me to be here watching you do it. So we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed it won't be an issue, right? But we have to have plans in place just in case. Oh, what did I do there? That was weird. Okay, sorry. So coursework. There's going to be readings and discussions, software projects and presentations. Oh, I did it again. So you'll be posting and discussing online and in person. And then you'll be doing software work that mostly will not be writing things from scratch. Actually, none of it will be writing things from scratch. It'll all be making changes to existing software systems, or just analyzing existing software systems. And so quality of that work. And then the breakdown is the projects are half the grade, discussions a quarter, and presentations are a quarter. So there are no exams during the semester or in the finals period. So when you all leave just before Thanksgiving, we are done. Now there might be, I say that, there could be like a final write-up of something, and I might say, if you want the time, I'll let you turn that in during finals week, right? So there could be a write-up of some sort that you could finish before Thanksgiving or you could finish after Thanksgiving. But in principle, we'll be done when we get to Thanksgiving and the class will be over. So, questions? And I absolutely expect all of you to be here and paying complete attention at 2:15 on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, when you've got to pack up all of your belongings, move home, worry about the weather, yeah, whatever. I figure we'll just quietly not worry about class that day, because that just doesn't seem to be a good plan. And it's not like I can bring donuts. So annoying, right? Can't have snacks. Sorry. What? Pop-Tarts. So then the rest of this is policies and stuff like that. So there's the learning outcomes. We've pretty much already talked about policies. Disability services is available if people have issues that they want to get a hand with or need an accommodation for. That's all good. Let me know. The Morris guiding principles, basically, be safe and be nice to each other. We've talked about most of that. Student conduct code, don't be a jerk. Where some faculty get very excited about personal electronic devices, I'm like, it's computer science, man, bring your stuff. And that's fine by me. Don't cheat. I'll try to be nice to you. Don't be dumb. Grading scale, standard stuff. Now, one thing, this is a 4-credit class, so there is an expectation of like 8 hours a week outside of class for the average student to get an average grade. So for example, there might be a lot of reading in a week. And you'll need to let me know if you think that's insane, but if you're spending 2 hours and going, oh, so much reading, it's like, well, fine, I don't care, right? 2 hours is not 8 hours, and 8 hours is what you needed for a C, so. Don't be mean in another way. Life is difficult, especially at the moment. There are people that will help. And we're all adults, let's behave accordingly. Okay, so that's the syllabus. Are there questions about the syllabus? Online, in person, anybody? Online people good? Okay. Well, Jacob speaks for the room because nobody else has their camera on, so I have no idea.
I'm good.
Thank you, Jacob. You're awesome. Okay, so we go back here. I do want to talk about a couple of things because there's actually a bunch of stuff due right away because, we got to start. So let's do it. So first, due tonight, because you've got nothing to do tonight, is this Drucker exercise, which I think I sent something out about on Slack, because I think some people have done this already. So I think I must have said something about this on Slack. But it's a fairly, well, actually, I don't want to say a fairly quick survey because you do want to be a little thoughtful. Part of the deal is like, what do you think your strengths and weaknesses are? Where can you contribute the most to a project? And I think, we want you to think about that some, not just be like, I'm 6'7", done. Because that's relevant to software how, but whatever. So that's due tonight. The next thing is, and then there's a little thing, please share your GitHub IDs, because there'll be times when we need to know each other's GitHub IDs for like inviting people to do code reviews. And, some people's GitHub IDs are really obvious. Like, I think, Sean, you're like Sean Reuter or something, really straightforward. But then you get the person who's like, Flaming Wombat 357, and you're like, I don't know who the hell that is. So a simple exercise to just let us know what your GitHub ID is so that we can connect with you when we need to. Then the other pieces of this, which is this perusal account and what is simple and what is easy in Rich Hickey's talk, all of these are related. Rich Hickey is the primary developer of Clojure, the programming language, which you've probably heard of, at least because it's the primary research focus for Yelena, and it's a sort of Racket-like language, which I think is quite cool in a lot of ways. Rich Hickey gives great talks. The guy is super smart and really thoughtful, and I think he has some very, very smart things to say about computer science and software development and language design. And this is one of his better known talks, I guess. It's an hour long. I think that the most important pieces are probably in the first 30 minutes. Then there's a little bit that is sort of 15 minutes that get sort of into the weeds, where he's essentially making a case why functional languages like Clojure and Haskell are simpler and therefore better in his terminology than object-oriented languages like Java and TypeScript. And that's interesting, but not as relevant to what we're doing here. So if you want to like skip through that, that's fine. But come back in at around 47 minutes. His stuff about environmental complexity, I think, is really important and interesting. So cool talk, definitely recommend it. Now, related to, so in the past, what I've done is I've been like, watch the talk or read the thing, and then go to Canvas and discuss. And go to Canvas and discuss has usually meant everybody types up a thing and then runs away. Occasionally, a few people will go and thumbs up a thing or two, or maybe like have a small response. There's very little real discussion that's ever happened in my experience. And if you've got a different experience of using Canvas discussions where there was what you considered a genuine discussion, man, I would love to hear about it, but that's not been my experience. And so in talking to some people this summer about this, one of the suggestions was to use what are called collaborative annotation tools, and Perusall is one such tool. And that's what I'm going to try this semester. There seem to be kind of two big players in this space. One is Perusall, where you create an account and Perusall kind of manages a lot of stuff for you. And the other is called Hypothesis, where they have a dot before the last IS. So in the URL, so it's like hypothesis.is. And Hypothesis is more distributed in some ways. It actually uses a browser extension, and you can comment on basically anything anywhere on the internet. Whereas Perusall, you can comment on things within Perusall that have been sort of assigned. And it does require registering, but it doesn't require having any software. You just go to their website. So I'm going to try Perusall. I'm not sure that I feel super strongly that Perusall's the winner, but that's what we're going to give it a shot, see what happens. Utkarsh had used this in a physics class and said that it worked well for him. So we're going to boldly go and see if it works for us. So one of the assignments here is to create a Perusall account. It's technically due Friday after the, watch Rick Hickey and annotate it in Perusall is due. And I don't know if that actually makes a great deal of sense. It made some sense in my head at the time, but whatever. But the idea is you should create a Perusall account. And yeah, can I actually get at my, yeah, I think I can. I realized all of a sudden that I wasn't gonna, since I left my phone at home, I wasn't sure if I would have access to my password wallet and be able to get the login. But I think we'll be okay. So I do want to open this up. Come on. Excuse me while you watch Mel type. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so I have shared with all of you an enrollment key for this course, which is this thing here. And when you create an account, you will have an opportunity to join a course. So you'll have an enroll in this course button. And if you click that, it'll ask you for an enrollment key, and you put in the one that I gave you, and it should add you to Software Quality F20. And when you're in Software Quality F20, you should have a library and assignments. And at the moment, there's just the one assignment, partly because this is an experiment and I want to see if it blows up in my face before I put a lot of effort into making more of them. But the cool thing is you can, little window with too much going on. There we go. You can essentially watch the video. Karsh is in doing his thing. So you can watch the video and you can leave annotations at any point in the video.
Thanks for inviting me to give this talk.
So as he's talking along, you can be like, oh man, that was an awesome thing. We should totally talk about that. Or I didn't understand a damn thing that man just said. Or I totally disagree with him and I'm right, even though he's famous and really smart, but I'm right. So you can go crazy, right? And the idea here is I would like you to leave at least three. Three seemed like not, I mean, they're like, you 7. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do 3 until I know how this works better. But you should leave at least 3 meaningful comments or questions, okay? And you should then be able to see other people's annotations and respond to them. So if somebody asks a question, you can go back and watch that part of the video again and be like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. That is interesting. Or, oh, I think what he meant was blah, 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 right? So you can respond to other people's comments. And I've been told, again, by my colleagues, that this has worked reasonably well. So I don't know. Again, you're all wearing the guinea pig mask, and we're going to find out like how this works or doesn't work for you. But so let me know if it is or isn't working. And I apologize for having a separate new tool. You know, it sucks to have multiple tools. There isn't, none of these tools are integrated into the U of M Canvas at the moment. This one actually has been rejected outright, and a hypothesis has been in limbo for 2.5 years at the U of M approval system. So I don't have any reason to think it's going to get approved anytime soon if it's been hanging around for 2.5 years. So the Canvas integrations don't seem to be plausible. So I'm like, well, we'll just do this. So we'll try it and see what happens. So your task in life then is to create the Perusal account. That's free, should be a no-brainer. And then let's try watching what is simple and what is easy. Let's try watching Rich's talk. Simple, made easy, and leave notes on it. And at the moment, I also have a old-fashioned Canvas discussion assignment, which is the one from before. That's like, hey, have a discussion here. I figure for the first go, I'll just try them both. And if you want to basically copy some annotation stuff out of Perusal and paste it into the discussion in Canvas with a little cleanup, don't just be like, you know, totally awful about it. But if you want to reuse some material, I'm fine with that, right? You don't have to like have a whole new set of clever things. But I'm thinking it might be useful in that the annotations are very in the moment. I'm saying something about this spot in the talk, whereas in the discussion, it might be more about a sort of a broad overarching comment or question. And it might also be a good place to talk about, like, if you think that something's missing, like he failed to address a particular question or issue, where do you put that in annotation land? At what point did he forget to include it? Maybe there is an obvious point, but it might not be. It might just be like, well, we got to the end and he never answered the question I wanted answered. That might make more sense in the discussion than in the annotations. So we'll try them both. We'll see what happens. Yeah, it'll be a thing. So there are questions about that. That's actually the first kind of important, complicated thing. You got to create an account on Perusal. You got to use this funky system that you've never used before. And we hope that it works. So does anybody have questions or concerns about the whole Perusal thing? I'm not seeing, as I try to look at all of the different people and things, nobody seems to have something. Okay. Okie dokie. Well then, we'll call that a win. And then there's some readings for Sunday, although I might have to move this clean code reading. The library doesn't have the e-reserve up yet. It's not a very long reading, but if they still don't have it by Friday, then we'll have to move when that's due. But I'm sort of hoping we can talk about Martin and this article about women considered better coders in class on Monday. So that would be the goal. And then after that, we will start in on a refactoring exercise where I have some of the most awful Java code you will have ever seen in your life. It is terrible. And it comes from a data structures book. I mean, it's embarrassingly bad that it comes from an actual book that we used for one semester here and then ran away from because, man, it was terrible. Just some awful Java. And I think the reason that Java is terrible with this book, and this book is not, the series of books isn't in print anymore, so it's not an active thing. This is from back in the early 2000s, I think. But I think the history of this, the guy first had a data structures book in C, and then he or his publisher were like, oh, we should make a C++ version. And some grad student or rando got hired to translate the Java code into C++, or the C code into C++ code. And I think whoever was hired to do that didn't really understand object-oriented programming very well and did kind of the minimal amount of hacking necessary to turn it into C++ code. And that's not very much because C++ is a strict superset of C. So frankly, all the C code in the first book was already C++ code, whatever the hell that meant. So they kind of wrapped some things in classes and pretended that was object-oriented code. It was not. Then, again, the author or the publisher or some combination decided that there ought to be a Java version of the book. And again, some other poor sap got hired to translate this awful C++ code into Java. Well, they probably didn't understand Java any better than whoever wrote the C++ code. And they probably didn't understand C++ all that well either. And so, this very kind of mechanical bad translation was done into Java. And I think that's why the book ended up with such really bad code. I mean, it is really the kind of stuff that if you showed it to somebody at a job interview, they would just decide that you had no idea what you were doing and go find someone else. And perhaps suggest that you take up another line of work. It's really that bad. So we're going to do a refactoring exercise where we take this awful code and we identify things about it that, ooh, we have a chat, I think, from you first. I'm glad you think so. We will take this awful code and we will identify things that are not good with it. And then we will turn those into issues in GitHub, which is essentially a plan for how to address some of these smells. We will actually do the work of trying to fix some of the smells. And it's an interesting project because different groups end up focusing on different aspects of the code. It's all so smelly. It's sort of like, this offends me the most. I will deal with it. No, that offends me the most. I will deal with it. And what you do first then really affects kind of what you might do later because it changes the code. So even though there's not that much code, by the time like Joe and Jaden have manipulated it some in their way, and Jacob and Austin have manipulated theirs in some other way, they begin to sort of diverge in an interesting way. So we'll document the smells, we'll do some refactoring, we will do code reviews on each other's work as a way of sort of generating feedback on the quality of the work that's being proposed. And then we'll do another round of all of that. And so that's going to go on for several weeks once we get into that here in a little bit. So, and that's basically the plan. Are there questions about anything so far? Otherwise, I think I'm done and we're about out of time. Austin.
So it's like it's a lot of coding probably in Java semester.
Oh, that's a good question. So the question, if you couldn't hear online, is the coding mostly going to be in Java this semester? Maybe. So this refactoring project at the beginning is definitely going to be in Java. There will be another opportunity to do some work like this later in the semester. And in that case, your group gets to pick the project you want to work on. So instead of me handing you something, namely this awful Java code, you get to pick something. Sometimes people pick their software design project. Sometimes people go out and find things on the internet. And actually, we've had people generate real pull requests on real projects as a result of this class. Sometimes they've been yelled at because people on the internet yell a lot. But we've had some where pull requests were actually accepted. And so we've had people do that sort of work in the software design tool kit. We've had people do work in Python. We've had people do work in Clojure. We had a group once do some stuff in C++. And it turned out there were two people that already knew C++ and wanted to work together. So that sort of made sense because most Morris students don't necessarily know C++. So we've had a variety of things happen there. So that part is kind of partly up to you. But that first part is definitely going to be in Java because that's what this code is. So great question. Other questions in the 3 minutes that are left? Anything? Anything online? Anybody? Yeah, so for this first assignment, let's try them both. So I would do the perusal thing for, so the question for online is, should we do both the Canvas discussion and the perusal annotation for the Rich Hickey talk? And my intention is yes. So I would probably watch it in perusal and annotate there. And then when you're done with that, either come up with something, a big picture thing to say on Canvas, or just extract some of the stuff from the annotations in Canvas and in perusal and put them there. But I'm asking you essentially to do the same thing twice. And we're going to find out what we think about those two approaches. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. And then Sean, did you have a question?
So is the chapter 1 thing from the book?
Yeah, and the library makes it available in their e-reserve thing for us, and I've requested it, but they haven't gotten to it yet. I think they're kind of swamped. And it's awkward because with the semester starting earlier, there are people that aren't on contract over the summer, and their contracts are set up so they would start and then have a little time to get ready before we all show up and start to do this. And when we moved the semester forward, it meant that a lot of people like came back from being away for the summer to classes start in 48 hours. So a lot of offices on campus are a little like, oh my God. So, you know, if the library hasn't gotten to it yet, I am not holding that against the library, right? That's all good.
There's also a couple like YouTube lectures that can be coming.
Oh, I'm sure there are a lot, actually. Robert Martin is frequently referred to as Uncle Bob on the internet. And he has written quite prolifically over the years about software and software development. Oh, I think that means we should probably leave. So there are people trying to drive us from the room. So we can talk more about Uncle Bob later. And I can imagine that he has a talk on sort of that stuff. This is the name of the book is Clean Code. Like we're taking the first chapter called Clean Code from a book called Clean Code. And the whole book's actually, well, the first half of the book's quite good. The second half of the book gets less useful. But I think the first chapter is enough for us to be getting on. So, okay. So thank you all very much. We've run long. I apologize. I will see everybody on Friday. If you have any questions about perusal, etc., definitely let me know. Otherwise, ciao.